Hello guys, and welcome back to yet another video. The workflow you see on screen is something I'm very excited about. It was actually inspired by a comment someone left on one of my previous videos. They asked if it was possible to scrape a person's personal LinkedIn profile and use that data to craft a highly personalized cold email opener. Well, as you can see, it is possible. There are some hurdles you'll need to take, but I'll be going over them in this video, so it's clear for everyone. Besides using the personal LinkedIn profile information, we're also going to be using the company profile information to craft an even better cold email opener, in my opinion. As I've been saying in the previous videos, the most important thing when it comes to crafting cold outbound email is personalization. I've been going over this in previous videos, but I'll be going over it indefinitely because it is the one thing that actually makes people reply to your email, makes them open to listening to your offer, makes them willing to have a sales call. It is the only thing that can turn any bulk email you send from ending up in people's spam to actually ending up them having a meeting with you. Besides personalization, the other big factor in cold outbound email actually being successful is starting the right people. This is not something I've touched on in previous videos, I don't think, but in this case, in this workflow you see on screen, is a specific use case where I'm targeting founders only. And what do founders like to talk about? Founders like to talk about their company and their success. So this workflow does exactly that. We'll be writing a personalized email opener, which gives them a pat on the back on how good they've been able to grow their business in the amount of years since it has been founded. And for me, this has driven tremendous results. I've been running this campaign for like a month now, and it's actually looking to be one of my most successful campaigns to date. Before I dive in and explain this workflow, let me tell you a little something about myself. If you're new here, my name is Clarence. I am a growth partner for B2B businesses. I help them scale their business to the next level. I send out hundreds of thousands of emails a month, so I've been through the trials and tribulations and I know exactly what works and what doesn't. If you are serious about growing your business and don't want to waste time replicating my systems and figuring out what works for you, there is a link in the description below to book a discovery call. As I said, I can walk you through it end to end to exactly show you how I can be of service to your business. Now let's dive into the workflow and see how everything's set up. So here in End-to-End, you can see the workflow that I've built. It is triggered by a webhook, which for the purpose of this video I've deactivated because I just wanted to show you one example. But you have to imagine this being triggered by a webhook. Then it pulls the lead from Airtable, which I use as my CRM, but this can be anything. This can be HubSpot, whatever you prefer, whatever you're using. It's just that I'm using Airtable, so I also won't be diving into it too much today. Just know that a change in the Airtable, so me checking a checkbox, which triggers the webhook, then goes on to pull all the record information from the lead. Well, in this case, I've done one record ID and the lead is Scott Irwin. You can see this is everything that's in my CRM. Something similar could be in yours, depending on where you got the lead information from or where you got the lead list from. Then it uses a HTTP request node, simply using the LinkedIn company URL. What this HTTP request node does is it retrieves all of the HTML from the company LinkedIn profile. So you can see here on the right side, there is a lot of code, so it's quite messy. But if you look closely over here, for example, you can see their follower count, a description of the company, posts are in there, everything's in there. Well, of course, this isn't as legible as we want it to be. So we move on to the code node, which literally says remove HTML LinkedIn page. I've named it like that. Here in the code node, we use the input from the left side. So we use all the HTML we've gotten from the company LinkedIn profile page. We filter it using this code to get the output we see on the right side. As you can see, it is the same text that was included in the HTML, but 99% of the HTML has been filtered, so it's much more easy to read for the large language model, which will be further down in this flow, to read and analyze and actually answer the questions we wanted to answer. When it comes to the code, this is the code I wrote myself with the assistance of ChatGPT. Save yourself some time, pause this video, write down this code for yourself. As you can see, it does quite an amazing job of filtering all the dirty HTML that's on the left side, on the input side, and outputting, I've named it plain text, but outputting all of the text that is actually on the page, and it includes everything we're interested in. Moving on to the first large language model of this flow. As you can see, there are many, but let me go over them one by one. So for the model, I have used ChatGPT 4o Mini. Let me give you some quick context about what this large language model node actually does. So as you can see on the left side, and what we just talked about, we have extracted all of the information that was present on the company LinkedIn profile page, which was this dirty HTML, along with all the text. Then we've filtered out the HTML to retrieve only the text. And now we are asking the large language model to analyze the text, so analyze their company LinkedIn profile and answer questions that we have. Just like I do in my previous videos, I won't really be going over the prompt that I've given the large language model for too long, because the questions that you'll be asking can be very specific. I mean, this is for the services I use it for, so that's why I want to get these answers. But it might be that you're looking for some complete different information, so it isn't as valuable to you to copy the prompt word for word, but I'll show it to you so you can copy it, so you can pause the video and copy it for yourself anyways, to kind of give yourself some starting point. Let me give you guys some context of the structure of this LLM, how I prompted it. Well, for the all encompassing one, I use a system prompt, and it classifies system prompts the following way, usually used to set the model's behavior or context for the next user message. So as you can see, it's just globally me saying or telling me the role the LLM has to play for the day and what I want it to do. And then in the next one, which is a user message, I describe the task and exactly what I want it to be the output. Once again, if you like to use this as a foundation for your own prompt, pause the video and copy it for yourself. Something that you might notice is that the bottom of the prompt, there is a piece of JSON code. The only thing this JSON code is for is because I want the output of this LLM to always be the same. Why do I want it to always be the same? Well, let's say further down the line, or for a instance personalization, I only want the posts to be analyzed and to be picked out the most interesting one to write a personalization about. I want to be able to extract these and input them into the next node. And if the name of whatever this output is not consistent, then there would be an error. So let's say this time it is outputted as content, and if the JSON wasn't present in my prompt, the next time it could be outputted as text, for example. But then the node doesn't recognize the input because it isn't named in the same way. So to save yourself a lot of time and a lot of headache, and also save myself a lot of time, a lot of headache, you want the output to be in a JSON. So that also means you have to think this button here down on your screen. And then lastly, you also need to give it some input. So as I already said, we used the cleaned text as input, so it can read through it, analyze it, and output the answer to the questions we've asked, which you can see on the right side. Interesting for today's video is that we've asked it to extract the exact number of employees. You can see it here down the bottom. Why we want to do that is something I'll go over a bit later, but this is something that I'm very proud of, and it's a very interesting way of personalization. I haven't seen it too much, but I do think, and I have seen, because I've been trying this out for myself, that it is very much successful. Then onto the code node. I know from previous messages I've received that people always get a bit anxious when I talk about code nodes, but once again, this was created with the help of my good friend ChatGPT. It's a pretty straightforward one. So what this one does is, since the output of the previous node is JSON, you can see it is all segmented. So this would make it very difficult for us to input everything into the next large language model, for example, to summarize or do whatever with it. So we want to combine this all into one piece of text. That is what this code is for. I won't dive too deep into it because I don't think it's that interesting. This was just a little back and forth between myself and ChatGPT to come up with this code. You can see on the right side, it says exactly the same things. So for example, mission, Cambridge Partners believes, and here mission, Cambridge Partners believes. But instead of everything being its own standalone input, it is now fused into one piece of text, which once again makes it easier further down the line. Okay, onto something that hasn't been featured too often on my YouTube channel, which is using a API to scrape, in this case, someone's personal LinkedIn profile. The scraper that I used is available on Effisys. I'll show you the webpage in a second. So here in Effisys, which is just a giant marketplace for scrapers, if you aren't familiar, just look up LinkedIn profile scraper made by Curious Coder. There is a free trial available, but I've rented it for $25 a month, which isn't that expensive, as you might understand. Here again, quite a lot of code, which might confuse some of you, but if you go to the information tab here on the right side, it'll guide you through how to get started, how to set this up, and how to get everything you'll need. Then what you need to do is press on JSON, copy all of this code, and paste it into the HTTP request node inside of N8N. So now we're back in N8N, so everyone follows along. Then we press on this next HTTP request node, which is set to post. Why is it set to post? Well, it's set to post because we want to trigger an API. We want to send like a message to the scraper to get started. So the JSON you just copied from the Effisys webpage, you paste it in here, and then all the way at the bottom there is a URL. So what you can see here in green, I'll pull it up so you can see it more clearly. What you can see here in green is a expression. This is based on the information we pulled from the CRM. So here on the left side, one of the first nodes in the workflow was to pull the leads information from the CRM. Well, in my case, the CRM I use is the CRM I use is Airtable. So, and because the LinkedIn profile URL is different for every lead you try to enrich, this needs to be a variable. So what I've just done is I've deleted this because there will be something here if you paste the code from the Effisys scraper and just paste this in there. And you can see on the right side what this actually says. Well, it's the same as the LinkedIn profile URL, but let's say I would be doing Tim Cook, for example. I would pull Tim Cook from my leads, then this piece of code would also output like Tim Cook on the right side. So it would actually trigger the right personal LinkedIn profile. Then you might be wondering why there is a wait node. Well, the thing is, when you trigger a scraper, the scraper might take a bit. It takes a bit to run and catch all the data from the profile. So that's why I've pasted a wait node. There is not really another way of circumventing or getting the information from the Effisys scraper to say it's completed. So just a wait node set to 1 minute is what I found from my experience to be more than enough. And it doesn't really matter because you can just trigger a lot of flows simultaneously. Then of course we need to catch the data or retrieve the data, from the Effisys scraper. We do this by utilizing another HTTP node set to get. If you remember, the last one was set to post to trigger the Effisys scraper, and this one is set to get the information from the Effisys scraper. So you have to paste this URL. Once again, this is a variable because the dataset ID that you get as a result from the successful scrape is different each and every person you scrape. That's it. And then you see here on the right side, Scott Irwin, which is the name of the person, and everything we could find on his complete LinkedIn profile. So a URL to his cover image, to his profile image, not that that's of any use. His complete occupation history, well, everything he posted about, his education. In this case, there are no certifications or honors he mentioned on his profile. And then, which you can't do any other way, is get the entire about section he's written about himself, which can be of use whenever you want to write a personalization about someone, because this is literally their life story is maybe a bit much. but you know what I mean. Which brings us on to the third code node. Once again, if you look on the left, you can see that all of the pieces of information are split, so they're all standalone. Very difficult for a future LLM node to process this and actually make something meaningful from this. So what I've done is written this piece of code. As you can see, it's really easy to get me this output, which just, the only thing it does is puts everything from the left side, which is separated into one large piece of text. It contains all the information that was also over here. This just makes it readable for everything else that follows in this flow. Then of course, we don't need all of the information from his LinkedIn profile. We may have some specific questions we want to have answered. That's what we use this large language model for. Once again, set to 4.0 mini, because I found that 4.0 mini is still more than capable to do things like this, and it is also very cheap, because you have to bear in mind there are some costs involved when enriching a person using AI, because the tokens, the input tokens and the output tokens just cost you money. Running a flow like this might be interesting for some of you people to know, is honestly like 2 cents. So 1,000 people would be $2, which is very cost effective, especially if you translated it into the time it would cost you to research 1,000 people and craft a personalized opener for each and every one of them. Once again, the prompts are split up into system and user prompts. So the system prompt is more of me giving the large language model a role it needs to play and what I want it to kind of do. And then here in the user node, it is the task. In this specific case, I ask it to give a summary of the headline and about section of his LinkedIn profile. I want a career timeline, and I want to identify the industry he is in. Here, once again, JSON, because I want the output to always be the same. Please, if you're building a system like this, be wary of the fact that having the output always be the same, or in the same structure, is very important, and it can save you a ton of time. Probably figuring out how this works costed me like 10 hours. So please do me a favor and save yourself those 10 hours by just asking ChatGPT to write the output into a JSON format and pasting it in here. And once again, at the bottom, you can see the input. Well, in this case, the input was from the previous nodes, which turned all of the segmented data into one large piece of text. And you can see, even though it may look messy to us, the ChatGPT node is more than capable of figuring out what this all means and answering our questions. You can see it outputted their career timeline, the industry he's in, and it wrote me a little summary about who Scott Irwin is. Well, the lead in this case, we're enriching. Then we want to take both the information from the company LinkedIn profile and all the information from the personal LinkedIn profile and fuse those two together. That's what happens over here. Then, because this is once again outputted as a JSON, we want to put all of the output into one large piece of text yet again, because that just makes it a lot easier for the large language model, this one, the summarized input one, to read. So as you can see, again, on the left side, everything is standalone, and we want it to be one large piece of text. This is actually the exact same code as I used in the second code node over here. So if you pause the video, copy the code, you can just paste it in here. Don't worry, you don't have to redo everything again. And you can see it's plain text. Everything that was on the left side is now on the right side, but instead of it all being segmented, it is fused into one. And then for the second to last code node, what we want to achieve is to fuse the information from the company LinkedIn profile together with the personal LinkedIn profile, once again into one large piece of text. So for the final ChatGPT node we're going to be using is to summarize both the company LinkedIn profile and the personal LinkedIn profile and extracting the most interesting and relevant information, which can vary depending on the lead you're enriching, because some people post very little on their personal LinkedIn profile, some people post very little on their company LinkedIn profile. So there can be discrepancies. That's why we have to do it this way. Fusing these two texts together is what we do over here. In this code, as you can see, it just takes the input from well, I haven't named it properly, but you understand it if you look at the workflow. Fuse input into one item 3, which is just a duplicate, and fuse input into item 1, and it just combines the text of those two inputs. And as you can see, combined text. So here they are separately, source 1 and source 2, and the combined text is, if you scroll down, just everything together. So I already talked about it briefly, but then we have this summarize input, which is the large keynote of this flow. What this does is summarize the company LinkedIn profile information and just give me a brief summary, as you can see on the right side. There are some basic stuff that you might want to use in future sequences of your cold outreach. So let's say I want to identify their industry, their mission and values, product and service summarized, etc., etc. Something notable here is specific achievement, because I've prompted it to derive a specific achievement the company has had based on like posts on the company LinkedIn profile. This is something that I would advise you using for crafting personalized email openers. It's something that I've used in the past with great success. But this video is more about showcasing other ways of using personalization in email openers. And as you can see, all of the output is once again in JSON format, because you might want to use this or upload this to your CRM, to your email provider separately to paste it in as variables inside of email templates. So for the third time, we fuse the JSON from the input into one piece of text to make it easier for potential future LLMs. This is just the use case of using the code nodes, which then brings us on to the final large language model node. You might be surprised to note that I'm using Claude to actually write the cold email openers instead of ChatGPT. From my experience, and I mean, it's an ongoing process because both companies keep building out their AI capabilities. For now, from my experience, Claude is better at copywriting than ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is better at analyzing data better than Claude. So let me dive into this node and show you what I've done to get the output. So first of all, the input is the fused together text from the company business profile and the LinkedIn personal profile, which we've covered a few notes ago. So it has all the information about when the company was founded, how many employees it has now, the industry that it's in, etc., etc. And then we only use one prompt, which is a system prompt. I'll show it to you right now. What I do is I give it very clear rules. So I want to use 5th grade language. Of course, most, if not all, business founders are more than capable of understanding language from higher grades than 5th grade, but it's just a kind of a rule of thumb to keep your language simple, so it's easy for people to read. They don't have to read it twice. It just makes, well, reading the email a lot more pleasant. I give it like the tone of the messaging. I tell it to use congrats instead of congratulations, which is a big thing because, well, congratulations always sound so formal and a bit robotic. And I tell it to use a 30-word maximum, and the compliment should only be focused on the business. This is something you can tweak for yourself. I mean, it could also be that you want the compliment to be more focused on the person, how they have grown the company or whatever, whichever use case you use this workflow for. And then I've given the model some examples. Giving examples of the output just saves you a lot of time because you can prompt it whatever way you want. The LLM will just run with it. And sometimes it's like banging your head into a wall because it just doesn't give you the output you want unless you give it some examples. So I've given it some examples. Now let me show you the output it came up with. So the company of the person we've enriched is called Camber Partners. Well, we've already seen before right here that it has 15 employees, which you can see right here, which is what we extracted from the company LinkedIn profile, which I went over quite a long time ago now, because this video has been going on for long enough. Then we can also see when the company was founded, so how long ago, April 22. And that's all being used. Here you can see the 15 person and the 2020 into the cold email opener. So let me read it for you. Seeing how Camera Partners has grown into a 15-person team since launching in 2020 while making such an impact in software investing is really inspiring, because software investing is also a variable we have enriched from both his LinkedIn personal profile and his company profile. I can press on test step so I can show you a different outcome. So here you can see it came up with something else. Congrats on Gamer Partners growth in software investing since 2020. Building a 15-person team while focusing on product-led growth companies is truly impressive. As I said, the purpose of this workflow is to craft a highly personalized compliment aimed towards a founder of a company, because we're only targeting founders with my lead list. I'm only targeting founders because they're decision makers and they're usually the easiest people to convince they are in need of growth, which is exactly what I can provide. And I think this does the job. I've seen from the results from the marketing campaign, the cold outreach campaign I've been running for over a month now, using the system to craft me openers, that it has been really successful. People just like the output. So to wrap things up, I just want to emphasize once again that there are two things which are most important when it comes to cold outreach. One is the targeting, but the targeting can be very simple because it's just thinking about who might be the decision maker in charge of okaying either going ahead with your product or your service, which in the use case I just shown you is for me was founders. And besides that, it's personalization. You can get data from a lot of places. I think LinkedIn is the most valuable source because people post a lot of stuff either on their personal profile or especially on their company profile. And since you want business about their company, that's where you can get it. If you're thinking about getting started with cold outreach, please do not send generic bulk emails to each and every one of them. Implement one of these systems. If you don't have the time and if you want to save yourself some time, click the link in the description below. I can build these systems for you and I can actually help you scale and turn cold outreach into the most consistent influx of new leads. Then all that remains is to thank you guys for watching. If you found this helpful, if you've learned anything, please hit a like. Don't forget to subscribe for future videos about cold email, automation, lead generation. And I hope to see you guys on the next one. Bye.